The lobby of Langston and Price was all glass and sharp lines, dressed in curated silence and curated smiles. At the heart of it, seated behind a walnut desk without a single unnecessary paper out of place, the receptionist glanced up as if registering the man who walked in was just another in a line of forgettable visitors. He was. Everyone knew who Michael Langston was. CEO, widower, father, untouchable. He nodded once barely as he passed, his long frame commanding yet restrained in a tailored gray suit. No tie, no smile. The elevator greeted him like a vault, closing around the hush of polished leather shoes and a mind already 3 meetings deep. Michael didn't believe in softness anymore. Not in conversation, not in business, and certainly not in love. After Vanessa's death, belief had become a luxury. His world was numbers, risk, control. He clung to routine with a quiet desperation. Mornings began at 5, coffee black, 1 hour with his son Liam, age 6, bright-eyed, often stubborn, always asking questions Michael didn't quite know how to answer, before the nanny arrived and he stepped into the fortress of ambition again. He was known for saying little, doing much. The board respected him. Investors loved him. His apartment on the Upper West Side was modern and cold, like the life he'd built since loss hollowed out what used to matter. He told himself Liam was enough, that his son didn't need softness, just structure. That morning had started no differently, until the school called. "Mr. Langston, it's not an emergency," the voice on the line said gently, "but we do recommend coming in. There was an incident in the library." He didn't like the word incident, or the tone that danced around it, but when he stepped into the school's front office, what he found wasn't a crisis. It was a boy sitting cross-legged on the carpet, looking both proud and furious, clutching a worn copy of The Wind in the Willows like it was treasure. Next to him stood a woman with ink-stained fingers, eyes like overcast skies, and a loosely tied braid that threatened to unravel. "She told me books are just for quiet time," Liam said before anyone else spoke. "But I was reading, Dad, really reading, and she said I had to pick a different book because this one's too advanced." The woman gave Michael a thin, apologetic smile. "I said it might be too complex, not that he couldn't try, he's persistent." "Am I here because my son wanted a challenge?" Michael asked, voice clipped. "No," she replied, "you're here because your son knocked over a cart of books when he didn't get his way, and then started reading aloud in protest, with feeling." Michael glanced down. "We'll talk about appropriate behavior later," he told Liam, then looked up again. "And you are?" "Eva Clark, new librarian." She held out her hand. He didn't take it. She lowered it without comment. He was already done with the conversation in his mind. "I'll cover the damage." "That's not what this is about." "Then what is it about?" She didn't flinch. "It's about how your son connected to a story most kids pass over. It's about giving that spark space. Maybe the library isn't just about rules. Maybe it's where he finds something real." Michael looked at her then, really looked. She wasn't polished like the people in his boardroom. She wore linen, not silk. Her voice carried warmth but held ground. "I appreciate your concern," he said flat. "But I have a company to run, and my son has boundaries to learn." He turned to leave. Liam hesitated. Clutching the book, he looked back at Eva. "Can I still check this out?" he asked. Eva knelt to his level. "Of course, Liam, you just might need to fight a little less dramatically next time." Michael almost said no, almost told her to keep it, but Liam's face had softened. His usual fidgeting stilled, so he nodded once. Permission granted. They walked out in silence. That night, long after Liam was asleep, Michael found himself alone in his office, staring at the spine of The Wind in the Willows. It had been tossed on the kitchen counter, forgotten amid half-eaten cereal and discarded sneakers. He touched the cover. Something about it itched in his chest. He used to love this book. His mother had read it aloud during the worst of his father's illness, voice cracking on the word home. He hadn't thought of it in years. He left the book where it was, but he didn't sleep easily. Eva didn't expect to see him again. People like Michael Langston existed in skyscrapers and quarterly reports, not between shelves and story circles. But 2 days later he appeared just after dismissal, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a paper bag. "Thought maybe the library could use better coffee," he said, offering it awkwardly. Apology for the first impression. Eva blinked. Thanks, though I like my coffee strong and with opinions. He nodded. It's from a place that scolds you if you ask for sugar. Perfect. He didn't linger, just walked the perimeter of the room slowly, observing, like he didn't quite trust a space this filled with color. You ever read to him? She asked as he lingered by the window. Liam, he shook his head. Used to, it's hard now. He wants stories I don't have time to keep up with. Maybe it's not about keeping up. Maybe it's about slowing down. Michael gave her a look, not annoyed, just unreadable. She leaned against a nearby shelf, wiping her hands with a cloth. That book he picked, why do I feel like it surprised you? It did. Why? He paused, then said quietly, because I used to read it, when I was his age. I don't remember telling him about it. Eva smiled. Then maybe he found it, or maybe you left something behind and didn't realize. He didn't reply, just looked at the shelves like they were pieces of a puzzle he hadn't considered before. The next week, Eva found a note tucked inside Charlotte's web. It wasn't signed, but the handwriting was neat and unmistakable. Do you have a recommendation? Something for fathers who don't believe in magic anymore. She stared at it for a long time, then, without smiling, pulled a book from the top shelf. It was about a man who built walls so high he couldn't see the stars, until a child pointed them out. She left it behind the desk the next morning, wrapped in plain paper, no note. Michael picked it up that afternoon, said nothing, but he took it. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't go back to the office that evening. He sat with Liam instead, read aloud without checking his phone, stumbled through the voices, forgot to worry if it made sense. Liam laughed when he made the wall sound grumpy. Michael laughed too. And Eva, shelving returns across the room, didn't say a word, but she heard it, the sound of something starting, quiet as it was. The second time Michael showed up at the school library, it was a Wednesday, 20 minutes before dismissal. The air still smelled faintly of glue sticks and pencil shavings, and the last bell hadn't rung, but Eva was already prepping for the usual stream of after-school wanderers, kids who needed a quiet space, kids who didn't want to go home, kids like Liam who walked in that day not with a book but with his father. This time Michael held the book she'd recommended in one hand and something more in his expression, hesitation maybe, or curiosity. I have questions, he said by way of greeting. Eva gestured to the reading nook. We have seating and answers on good days. He followed her, glancing once at Liam, who had already made a beeline for the beanbags and was deep in a book about space exploration. Eva noticed how Michael's gaze lingered on his son, longer than it had the first time, like he was trying to memorize something he hadn't thought to keep before. She sat not behind her desk but in a kid-sized chair across from him, elbows on her knees. So, she prompted. Michael lifted the book, The Man with the Walls. He reminded me of, he stopped, reworded. He frustrated me. He had all the reasons in the world to stay hidden, and none of them held up when the boy asked to see the stars. Eva nodded. Most walls look stronger from the inside. He looked down at the book. He let the boy in too easily. Or he was just tired of being alone. Their eyes met. A quiet passed between them that wasn't silence exactly. Something shifted, but neither of them moved to name it. Michael cleared his throat. Liam liked the story, said the stars made him feel like maybe his mom still sees him. Eva's expression softened. He said that. Michael nodded. Afterward, he told me I shouldn't be afraid of quiet. That surprised her. Not the words. Liam had always struck her as unusually perceptive, but the fact that Michael was repeating them out loud, like they mattered. He's not wrong, she said gently. Michael looked down, then reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a folded paper, creased and smudged at the corners. He handed it to her. He drew this. Eva unfolded it carefully. It was a crayon sketch, rough, colorful, lopsided, but clear. A tall man, a small boy, and a woman drawn like a constellation above them, her smile framed in starlight. In the corner, Liam had written in his uneven scrawl, my family, still 3. She looked up at Michael, but his eyes were elsewhere, on the bookcases, the floor, anything but the picture. He asked if I was happy, he said quietly. I told him happiness isn't the goal, that it's about doing what you're supposed to do. And do you believe that? I did, until he asked why I looked so tired all the time. The library was still around them, but something in the air thickened, more personal, more real than either of them expected from a conversation in a school library between a CEO and a librarian. Eva folded the drawing and handed it back. You want another book? She asked, shifting just slightly, a reprieve from the heaviness. Michael hesitated, then nodded. One where the adult doesn't know what to do but figures it out anyway. She thought for a moment, then stood, scanning the shelves until she found a thin, dog-eared paperback. She handed it over. It's technically a middle-grade novel, but the message hits harder when you're older. He looked at the cover, a boy and his father camping in the woods, a tent, a storm, a quiet kind of healing. I hated camping, he muttered. Good, she said, that means you might actually learn something. He left with the book. This time he said thank you. In the weeks that followed, Michael returned every Wednesday. He always brought Liam, always left his phone in his coat pocket, always asked for a new recommendation. Sometimes he brought Eva coffee. Once he brought a bag of cookies that Liam swore they'd baked together, though Michael's expression hinted at store-bought truth. They talked in low tones at the reading table, often interrupted by children needing help finding books or asking Eva to tie their shoes. Michael never seemed comfortable in the chaos, but he didn't retreat either. He sat in it, watched his son in it, listened when Eva read aloud to a group of kindergartners one rainy afternoon, and noticed the way her voice changed for different characters. He didn't flirt, she didn't invite it, but there was a current now running beneath their conversations, unnamed but unmistakable. One afternoon, after Liam had wandered off to sit with a group of older kids poring over an atlas, Michael turned to Eva with something close to vulnerability in his voice. I don't really know what I'm doing, he said. She didn't ask what he meant, she just waited. I know how to lead, I know how to get results, but I don't know how to slow down without feeling like I'm failing someone. Work doesn't leave space for doubt. And Liam. Michael exhaled. Liam leaves space for everything, especially the things I've locked up. She reached for a book without looking. Then maybe he's your teacher right now. Michael took it, glanced at the title, The Boy Who Caught the Wind. Is there a happy ending? He asked. No, she said, but there's movement and hope. He nodded once, not disappointed. Outside, snow had started to fall. It was the first of the season. Kids ran to the windows, pressed fingers to the glass. Even Liam stood, transfixed. Michael didn't move, just watched the way Eva looked at the falling snow, like it was a language she still understood. You believe in love? He asked, the question coming from somewhere deeper than it seemed. She didn't look at him right away. When she did, her answer came slow and sure. I believe in trying again, even when you're scared. Michael didn't speak, but he stayed until the library closed. And when he left, the book was tucked under his arm. That night he read the first 2 chapters with Liam. Then, after the boy had gone to bed, he read the next 3 alone. He didn't check his email once. And for the first time since Vanessa's death, he wondered what it might feel like to be seen again, not just in grief, but in becoming. Winter deepened in fits, not storms, just long gray stretches that lingered like unsaid things. The city shrank under it, people folding in against the wind, rushing from place to place with hunched shoulders and coffee clenched in their fists. Michael's schedule didn't shrink, but it shifted, slightly. He started leaving his office earlier on Wednesdays. A standing meeting got bumped. A dinner with an investor postponed. His assistant raised an eyebrow at first, but quickly learned not to ask. The new routine was simple. Pick up Liam, stop by the school library, return books, pick new ones maybe, if time allowed, stay for story hour. He never announced himself. He just walked in, tugged off his gloves, and went to the return desk. And Eva was always there, usually shelving, sometimes wiping down tables. Once, kneeling to fix a ripped spine on an old copy of Harold in the purple crayon. Her hands moved like she was doing something sacred. Michael noticed things, like how she used her whole body when she laughed, shoulders, neck, even her fingers. How she instinctively quieted her voice when speaking to someone who was nervous. How she talked to kids the same way she talked to adults, not with patience but with respect. Eva noticed things too, like how he'd started asking more questions, not just about books but about the kids, what they liked, what made them pay attention. What stories did when they were too tired to say what they were feeling. He never asked about her, not directly, but the interest lived in the space between his silences. And still they didn't flirt. It wasn't like that, not yet. They were orbiting something, careful not to break it by naming it too soon. One Tuesday in early February, Eva stayed late to finish a bulletin board. Her fingers were stained with glue stick residue, her knees sore from crouching, and her hair was falling from its braid. She didn't hear the door at first. Michael's voice startled her. "You're closed." She looked up. He stood in the doorway, coat dusted with snow. "Technically," she said, standing, "but I don't enforce it if someone brings a second round of coffee." He held up 2 cups. "I guessed wrong." "You guessed exactly right." He stepped inside, quiet footsteps across the tile, set the cups down. She watched him as he took in the half-finished board, Stories That Change Us, paper stars, quotes from kids, space for more. "You do all this yourself. No one else wants glitter in their shoes for 3 weeks." He chuckled, a short, honest sound. "I used to hate craft days." "Still do." He hesitated. "Liam doesn't, so I'm learning." She sat, pulling her legs under her. "That's the thing about kids, they make you show up, even when you don't want to." Michael didn't sit right away. He wandered instead, running his fingers along a shelf's edge. "What were you like before?" he asked. Eva looked up. "Before? Before this, before here." She tilted her head. "That's the first personal question you've ever asked." "Was it too much?" "No," she said after a pause, "just new." He finally sat across from her on the carpet, too close for casual, not close enough for risk. "I used to work at a nonprofit, literacy access for underserved communities, bookmobiles, pop-up classrooms, reading tutors. It was messy, beautiful. Then my father got sick. I came home to help, never left." Michael looked at her then, differently, as if the pieces rearranged into something he hadn't fully seen. "You miss it." "Some days, but I like building things here too. This place matters. Sometimes small is where the good stuff grows." He was quiet for a beat. "I forget that. Because big is louder. Because big distracts you from what you've lost." She nodded, didn't press. Michael reached into his coat and pulled out a paperback, worn from travel, The Boy Who Caught the Wind. He passed it to her. "I finished it. And—" He ran a hand over the cover. "It made me slower. I noticed the way Liam holds his breath when something sad is coming, how he doesn't ask for comfort, but he wants it." Eva's voice dropped. "That's huge, Michael." He didn't say anything for a while, just looked at her. There was something unguarded about him tonight, not tired, not cold, just open in a way that made the air feel thinner. "I still don't believe in love," he said softly. "I didn't ask you to. But I believe in this," he continued. "These Wednesdays, these books, you." Eva's breath caught. She didn't move, didn't smile, just let the truth of it land. "Then let's stay there," she said. "Let's believe in this for now and see where it goes." Michael exhaled slowly. "Okay." Outside, the snow had stopped. Inside, the light felt warmer. He left 15 minutes later, coffee cup still half full. Eva didn't watch him go. She returned to her bulletin board, pressed a new star into place, and added a quote. "Sometimes all it takes is one chapter to change everything." She didn't write a name under it, but she knew who it was for. The next morning, Liam ran into the library before school with a drawing in hand. He didn't even say hello before unfolding it and holding it up proudly. It was him, Eva, and Michael sitting in a circle of books, smiling. Above them, "My dad reads with his whole heart now." Eva knelt, took the picture, and kissed the top of his head. "He does," she whispered. "He really does." By March, the city started to thaw. Slowly, reluctantly, Piles of snow at street corners melted into gray slush, and the wind traded its bite for something softer. Liam traded his winter boots for sneakers, and the library windows stayed open a little longer each afternoon, letting in fresh air and the sound of kids chasing each other across the courtyard. The rhythm between Michael and Eva didn't change much on the surface. He still arrived on Wednesdays, coffee in hand. They still spoke between shelves and story circles, exchanging books like messages in plain sight, but something beneath it had deepened, something neither of them had named aloud. It was in the way Michael lingered now, in how Liam started calling the library hours when he talked about it, in how Eva caught herself watching the door on days she wasn't expecting him, just in case. One Wednesday, Michael didn't come. The day passed with an ache she hadn't anticipated. Liam showed up alone with the nanny, quiet and distracted, eyes flitting toward the window every few minutes. He had a meeting, the nanny offered with a shrug, said to tell you he's sorry. Eva nodded, masking whatever disappointment rose up. Liam didn't stay long that day. He chose a book about dragons without looking too hard, then left with a subdued goodbye. She didn't expect an explanation. People like Michael didn't owe anything. But that night, after she'd locked the doors and turned off the lights, she found an envelope slid under the front mat. Inside was a note, short, handwritten. Couldn't get away today. Thought about that book you mentioned last week, the one about second chances. Do you still think people deserve them? No signature, but she knew the writing. She pulled out her phone, typed a response, deleted it, typed again. Yes, but they have to want them enough to show up. She didn't send it, not yet. Instead, she slipped a book into her tote, a novel about a man returning to a small town he'd left behind, only to find what he'd been running from wasn't a place, but the person he used to be. She saved it for him, just in case he came back. He did the following week, a little late, a little disheveled, no coffee, no Liam. Eva didn't greet him with a smile. You okay? She asked, neutral. Michael looked tired, not just from lack of sleep, but from effort, the kind it takes to rebuild something you're not sure is salvageable. Rough week, he said. Liam stayed home today, he's fine, just wanted space. From you. Michael met her eyes. Maybe. I told him I had to miss last week. He said I always say that. Eva didn't soften, do you? I didn't think I did, but maybe I do. She didn't respond right away. Instead, she handed him the book from her tote. This is for you. He took it carefully, read the back. You think I'm this guy. I think you know what it feels like to lose track of yourself. He sat down slowly, held the book like it weighed something more than paper. I thought I could do both, he said, be the man in charge and the father who shows up. But this week reminded me that when things get tight, I default to work. It's what I know how to fix. Then maybe the answer isn't doing both, Eva said. Maybe it's changing what in charge means. He looked at her, then down at his hands. You make it sound simple. No, she said, I make it sound possible. They sat like that for a while, no rush, no agenda. After a while, she asked, do you remember the first book you ever loved? He nodded, The Wind in the Willows. Not as a parent, as a kid. He smiled faintly. It was that one. My mother used to read it when my dad was sick. It was the only thing that made her laugh. And you? I didn't understand all the words, but I remember thinking Mole was brave. He left the safety of his burrow just because something inside him said he should. That felt impossible. And now? Michael closed the book in his hands. Now I wonder what I've been hiding from, and what Liam sees when he looks at me. Eva touched the edge of the table. Her hand was close to his, but didn't touch. He sees someone trying, she said. That matters more than you think. 2 weeks later, something changed. Michael didn't just come to the library. He stayed after it closed. Eva was rearranging a display, alone except for Liam, who had fallen asleep in a beanbag chair with a book open on his chest. Michael was different that evening, less guarded, more deliberate. His coat was draped over a chair, his sleeves rolled. He looked for once like he wasn't between things, he was here. Can I help? He asked. Eva glanced up. You want to shelve books. I want to be where my kid feels safe, he said, and I think that's here. That stilled her, made her pause mid-shelving. She handed him a stack. They worked quietly, easy, like they'd done this 100 times. At one point, Michael turned to her. Do you believe in timing? Eva didn't answer right away. I believe in readiness, not sure about timing. He nodded, looked down at the last book in his hands, holes. I think I've been digging in the wrong place for a long time, he said. She walked to him then, close enough to see the wear in his collar, the lines around his mouth that softened when he smiled. No one's asking you to have all the answers, Michael. He looked at her, not rushed, not uncertain. I'm not ready for love, he said, but I'm ready for more, whatever this is. Eva reached out, her fingers brushing his hand for the first time. That's enough, she said, for now. And for the first time, he didn't feel like he was failing by needing someone beside him. He felt like he was learning. Outside, the city kept moving, but inside the library, time held still, just long enough for something new to begin. Spring arrived almost without warning. One day the trees outside the school were bare, and the next, tiny green buds unfurled like a quiet promise. The children stopped wearing jackets. The windows in the library stayed open longer, and Michael, who once never noticed anything outside of quarterly projections, now pointed out robins to Liam on the walk-in. Eva noticed everything. How Michael's voice had softened around the edges. How Liam's laughter came easier. How something invisible but constant hummed between them now, like the low, quiet current of a story not yet told aloud. They weren't a couple, not officially, not publicly. But every Wednesday and sometimes the Fridays that followed, they sat together at the same small table, sharing space like people who had stopped pretending they weren't drawn to each other. That Friday, the last one before the school's spring break, Liam came into the library holding something behind his back. Eva arched an eyebrow. Is that a surprised face I see? He grinned. It's for you. She knelt. He handed over a homemade bookmark, paper folded carefully, laminated between tape, glitter, and uneven lines. In a child's careful script, you make the books better. Eva pressed a hand to her heart. I think this is the best thing anyone's ever given me. Liam beamed, then glanced behind her. He helped me cut it. Dad says you deserve something shiny. Michael leaned against the doorway, casual but watching. She met his eyes, held them for a breath longer than usual. That true. He shrugged, stepping forward. You do make things better. There was no flirtation in it, no grand gesture, just truth. Eva tucked the bookmark into her pocket. I'll keep this forever. Later, when the kids had trickled out and the sun had begun to dip behind the courtyard trees, Michael lingered again. Liam was sprawled on the rug with a stack of books. Eva was shelving returns, one eye always on both of them. You're good with him, Michael said quietly. Eva glanced up. He's easy to love. Michael looked at her then. In that way he did when he wasn't quite ready to say something, but couldn't walk away from it either. I've been thinking about next. Next? He nodded. Liam's been asking about summer, about camp, about what happens when this year ends, and I realized something. Eva waited. I don't want him to think this. He gestured around the library, to the shelves and the windows and the light pouring in, was just temporary. A routine that disappears when the weather changes. She set down the book in her hand. It doesn't have to be. I know, he paused. That's what I came to say. Michael. I'm not asking for everything, he said, stepping closer. I'm asking for the chance to keep showing up, to build something slow, real. She looked at him, really looked, and saw the weight he carried, but also what he'd let go of. The armor he'd worn in their first meeting was thinner now, not gone, but cracked wide enough for light. And if I say yes? He smiled, not the practiced one she'd seen in articles or photos, but something shy and earned. Then maybe you could meet us one weekend. Liam wants to visit that bookstore you mentioned, the one with the cats and the piano. Eva blinked. You remembered that. Every word. She reached for his hand, not dramatic, just natural. Her fingers slid into his, warm and certain. "Okay," she said, "let's see where this goes." The bookstore was tucked into the corner of a quiet street downtown, with ivy crawling up the brick and a sign that squeaked in the breeze. The owner greeted them like old friends, and Liam made straight for the cats, who tolerated him with impressive patience. Michael stayed near Eva. He didn't check his phone, didn't retreat into distraction. He asked questions about poetry of all things, bought a memoir she'd recommended without even pretending to understand it. When the piano in the back rang out under a child's hands, he didn't flinch. He just smiled. They sat together in the reading loft above the stacks, sipping coffee and watching Liam flip through picture books. "This is good," he said quietly. "It is." He looked out the window, then back at her. "Sometimes I forget that good doesn't have to mean perfect." Eva leaned her head against his shoulder. "Sometimes the best stories start a little messy." They stayed like that until the light shifted, and Liam fell asleep with a cat curled on his lap. Michael carried him out. Eva locked the door behind them. Weeks passed. Spring melted into early summer. The library held its last story hour of the year. Michael donated new beanbags. Liam helped Eva plant herbs in the window boxes. The school buzzed with transition, but the three of them somehow didn't rush. One evening, long after Liam had fallen asleep in the back seat, Michael walked Eva to her apartment door. They stood there, not pressed for time. "You still don't believe in love?" she asked, not teasing. He took a long breath, then shook his head. "I didn't," he said. "Not until a librarian handed my son a book I thought I'd forgotten. Not until I saw what it did to him, to me." Eva's voice was soft, and now. He stepped closer. "Now I believe in slow pages and second chances, and people who look at you and see what's still possible." He touched her cheek, gentle, reverent. "I believe in this." Eva didn't say anything. She didn't need to. She just pulled him closer, kissed him like turning a page, and let the story continue. Not rushed, not perfect, but real.